Welcome back, guys. What an exciting turn that was. And another turn down. So let's find out what actually happened this turn, and then we can figure out what we're going to do in turn 9. If you haven't already, do please like and subscribe. Also go and check us out on Facebook, so you can always be kept updated on when new videos are coming out, and you can also share what you're working on. So for the campaign, we're using my own rule set. It's called Beggars and Scoundrels. You can go and purchase it on my Ko-fi channel. The link is in the description. So, for those of you that aren't aware where the 1814 campaign is set, it's set in France itself. So we had an interesting turn with the orders. The Allies gained the initiative. However, that didn't necessarily mean that they were going to get everything their own way. What it did mean is that the French main forces were pulling back towards Cézanne, but Marshal Ney was left behind as a rear guard to hold up the Allies. Because the Allies got the initiative, they caught him. The remainder of the Allied forces swung round in the north to get into a good position to attack, and as I said, most of the French forces are all trying to converge into that central position. So we did have one good battle this turn with Marshal Ney's rear guard trying to hold the Allies up until all the French can combine. So as I said, the battle was upon us. Marshal Ney's forces consisted of 4 infantry brigades, 2 cavalry and 2 artillery batteries, so not a huge force when you compare it against what the Allies had in effect. Really, they were 2.5 corps of infantry and cavalry combined. Yeah, there's a lot of troops.
So as Napoleon withdraws north to his central position to fight in the next turn probably, Marshal Ney, the bravest of the brave, has been left behind with a smallish force to hold up the Allied juggernauts. Orders: hold for as long as you can and then withdraw. Against him we've got Blucher with 4 corps. We've got the Prussians, Russians, 3 corps, 2 Russian, 1 Prussian, and all of the cavalry combined. So quite considerably larger, 3 times the numbers. Battlefield itself, slightly undulating, with a road and the river running along the south, and then another road running to the north. So the Allies will be coming on from this direction, whilst the French will be setting up somewhere on the left hand side to the centre of the board. So at the end of turn 1 we see the Allied juggernaut coming on pretty well across the whole extent of their side of the battlefield. Russians more to the south and Prussians with a bit of cavalry to the north. Facing off against them is the smaller French force. They've massed their artillery together, which is quite useful, being able to concentrate its fire, whilst their infantry brigades are slightly spread around, trying to hold up as much territory as possible, with the cavalry held ready to go when it's needed. Not too many casualties this turn, but a few. No leaders, luckily. So at the end of the second turn, again we had the Allies coming on with strong forward advance across the line, whilst the French during their movement phase didn't do a huge amount. The cavalry have just moved around to the side, ready to see if there's a target. Obviously the Allied cavalry on the opposite flank has advanced somewhat. The artillery for the French has concentrated on the cavalry, inflicting reasonably high casualties. For the Allies, 1 gun inflicted cohesion loss, the other tried to fire at the cavalry but didn't have a clear line of fire, and so missed, unfortunately, for the Allies. So turn 3 saw a bit of a change of pace. On this side of the battlefield, the coalition cavalry started to swing round so they could try and engage the French cavalry who had moved up. So it looks like we're going to have our first clash next turn. But due to the French movement, the Russian infantry basically paused this stage to see what happens in the charge. In the centre, however, the Allies kept coming. Their cavalry was making good progress. However, this turn it did take 2 hits from the artillery batteries, and so has gone hesitant in that it was unable to advance any further. So hopefully they can get their momentum going again next turn. Allied guns, again, they tried to concentrate on the French infantry and did get some good hits this turn. So at the end of turn 4, at the start of the movement phase, we had the central column and the Prussians continuing their advance across the centre. The Russians down on the river, the infantry held position. The cavalry had charged, and so the infantry waited to see what would happen. However, during the melee, the Allied cavalry were forced back. So the infantry will be forming square to try and protect themselves this turn. Due to the melee, the Allied artillery wasn't able to fire on the cav, so attempted a shot on the French infantry, scoring mild success. The second gun fired into the French ranks, hidden behind the wall, to no effect. The French guns, one of them carried on firing on the Allied cavalry and forced them back, whilst the second started pounding the column in the centre, inflicting quite bad casualties. The skirmishers themselves did manage to get into range this turn and have started to engage the French. So not a brilliant turn for the Allies, but still much to play for. So this turn saw the main force from the Allies continue its advance. They're already getting in position so that soon they will be able to assault the French, which is probably the best bet here rather than slugging it out with musket fire. For the right side, we had the cavalry who finished off the Allied cav who have fled, broken, and the French pulled away from the squares and are now just set up in the centre, threatening the infantry. Although they won't be able to charge this turn because they are pretty badly winded. But as I said, the Allied troops have held. Artillery exchanges this turn did some damage on both sides, nothing too crazy, although the Russian commander in the centre did take a wound from an artillery shot, so that wasn't too good for him. So this turn saw the French cavalry in the centre threatening the Russian infantry, so they formed into squares to try and protect themselves. Although it looks like half a square, each of those bases would be in their own square. And the Lancers are still threatening this side, so although they've taken some artillery casualties this turn, they are holding up that whole wing of the Allies. The French infantry are starting to withdraw back on this side. In the centre, again, the Prussians carried on in the same old style. However, the French have started an ordered withdrawal. They're inflicting casualties as they go, with both guns blasting away the infantry. The coalition cavalry has started to move to the centre now because it's going to have to try and engage the French cavalry to clear them out. And the artillery is just carrying on its bombardment. So this turn was a bit of a mixed bag. The French having their withdrawal going underway. The infantry from this wing have got to the roads, so they'll be able to start moving faster. The cavalry have started to pull themselves back. And the French on the left, again, are just pulling themselves back in a slow, steady manner. The Allies, Prussians, that is, carried on their advance. The skirmishers, light infantry, did get into some close-range fire with the French, who put a devastating volley into them and broke them. The two artillery batteries had been concentrating on one of the Prussian brigades for quite a while, and they have broken, so that wasn't good. The Russians, who are in square, they're still in square because they're in pretty close proximity to the French cavalry, but they are slowly advancing, and the Allied cavalry has moved further across, with their hussars having rallied. This Allied column has now reformed into a column and is beginning its advance once again. This turn we saw the French continuing their withdrawal. However, both of the Allied batteries concentrated on the one regiment who did break this turn, and so they are withdrawing. This brigade has made it almost to the border edge, whilst the cavalry are just there guarding and keeping the Allies from being able to advance too quickly. French guns did reap a good tally this turn on Allied infantry. The Allied cavalry is about to merge and will be in a good position next turn. And on the right wing, the Russians are advancing down the road quite steadily. So this turn was the final turn, in that the French had started to get most of their troops off the field and so were set to just withdraw the remainder. The Allies advanced a little bit, but they were very cautious because of the two French cavalry regiments in the middle, so their infantry couldn't really safely cross much further forwards. They had massed their cavalry ready into a good position so that next turn they'd be able to move forwards, and again that right wing kept their advance going. But the French have done their job. They've managed to hold up the Allies, inflict some casualties, although it's probably about equal what was suffered from both sides, and the French have withdrawn. We then rolled to see if the pursuit would occur, and it did. So the French did get caught by the cavalry and suffered a few more casualties, but they were able to extricate themselves okay from that. And then in the successive, the Allies tried again to catch them, but that time they were unsuccessful. So what is left of the French is making its way north to link up with Napoleon and the rest of the army.
So we end up in pretty good positions for both sides. The French are more or less consolidating in the centre, whilst the Allies in two large manoeuvring groups are closing in on them. So for next turn we have clear weather. But what are the options? For the Allies, this time I've just come up with two which I think make the most sense. Number one is for our sort of northern forces en masse to close with Napoleon, and the southern forces to keep advancing in the south just to keep the French off balance. And the second one, again, is for the northern forces to get into preparatory position. So they're not necessarily going to assault Napoleon next turn, but they're going to try and attack Ney, try and attack the Guard, and just get themselves into position to hopefully whittle down the French and then strike in 2 turns. For the French, we've come up with 4 potential options. Option 1 is for, again, the main force just to consolidate around Cézanne, and the reserves just to move up to threaten the flank/rear of Blucher's forces. The second option is that we actually go on the offensive and strike down onto the Allied forces under Blucher and try and eliminate them before they can link up with the reinforcements. Option 3 is similar to last time, with all forces converging on Cézanne, but with those reserve corps if they get the opportunity to strike at Blucher to take the opportunity. And number 4 is for all French forces to actually withdraw slightly further, just sort of trading time to get themselves into a more consolidated position, ready to strike or defend. So let me know down below what you thought about the events of the last turn and also these options. Let me know what you think is the best strategy for both sides going forwards. But both sides are now kind of in precarious positions. The French, whilst having the strategic initiative, are very, very depleted, whilst on the other hand the Austrians and the coalition have just lost one of their larger army groups, so now they have to make up for that with everyone else who are a bit more separated. But as I said last time, if you're enjoying the campaign, if you want to get your hands on it, head over to the coffee channel where you can pick up the rules which come with the campaign itself. Then you can fight it out either as we play along or just on yourself to see how you do separately. But anyway, till next time guys, I hope you take care.